Hello, I'm back. Okay, today, can you see me properly? It's good enough, right? I feel like if I put it this way, you can see. Um, Today I want to speak about fear again. I did speak in another video about fear, but that was more on a bigger scale, like society and the fear in society and everything. But I want to speak on a smaller scale, I guess, but it's still related to that because I don't know why the topic of fear really draws me. I keep feeling like speaking about it for some reason. That is so funny. I don't know why, but I think there's a lot of fear in the world these days. So I think it makes sense. But I want to speak about how fear is power, and what I mean by that is power control. You know, the negative side of power, the manipulation, and someone who can take control and advantage of you. And that's what I mean when I say fear is power, as in it gives power to these energies and these types of people, right? It's so hard to say it without sounding like stupid, but fear is an illusion. I know, but it's so hard. Oh my god, my clothes. It's fine. It's so hard to say it, but let's get serious. Fear is an illusion, but I know from my own experience that when you live something, it's much more different. You know, it's like much more different than just saying it or reading about it and stuff. But it really is an illusion, and the only person it benefits is the person trying to control you or the situation trying to control you. It's not always people. Sometimes it's situations that you seem to find yourself in a loop again and again and again that you seem to not be able to get out of. And this is why I want to speak about it, because I think it's so important. I want to say something which is quite personal, but I feel like it's genuinely going to help, because otherwise I don't know how to explain it in a better way. But I'm not going to go into detail because I personally, that's just my boundaries and I don't want to go into detail. But I do feel like sharing this, and, I don't know. Anyways, so I don't know how to say it without, I'm not laughing. Obviously, it's nervous laughs. It's not. But, okay. So I'm going to give you a personal experience, one of my lived experiences. So if I was abused for 7 years, right? 7 to 8 years. And this person, it was an ongoing cycle. And if topics like this trigger you and things, please take your time, or like you don't have to listen to this or anything. But it was an ongoing cycle, and it's so funny because I think other victims of this might relate to this. It's also so normalized, but it was so the same. It was the same cycle. It was the same cycle over those 7 and 8 years. It was the same exact thing. Maybe different situations, scenarios, environments, but the same things were happening, right? It was the same thing. Triggers. Oh, they're angry. Boom. They take it out on me, or like, oh, I messed up. Take it out on me, or whatever. Right. Where am I going with this? So, over that time, what happens is so funny, because things like this that happen in my life make me very interested in analyzing how our brains work and the way we are as humans. And I realized that over the years, instead of your brain telling you, you're just afraid, and it's just an illusion. You know how I told you at the start, it's just an illusion, right? Yeah, our brain isn't going to tell us that, because you're just like, I don't know, it just doesn't tell us that. The other response I always used to have, and I've noticed other victims having as well, is you adapt to it. You adapt to that person, you adapt to their need or whatever. You adapt to what that fear is telling you. like that fear kind of powers us. And I think it's just a natural human response, because, I think the biology of us, I think if you think about it, it's like, yeah, our body is getting ready. It's kind of like you're in that fight or flight, and then your body's not just gonna tell you it's okay, it's just fear, it's an illusion. It's gonna want to adapt so that it can like survive, because that's what it knows. And yeah, of course, because it's our bodies, but that's why it gets tricky, because I'm given a very, a specific traumatic example, but it can come in a lot of different ways. And it doesn't just have to be physical. This can be verbal. This can be people controlling you, manipulating you verbally, mentally, emotionally. This can be a situation that you feel you can't get out of, as well. An environment, a group of people, friends, relationships, and like girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever. It can be anything, And what happens is, what happened to me was my body just kind of adapted to it over the years. You adapt to it, and you're like, okay, well, I know when it's coming. I know it's the same exact cycle. So how do I prepare for it? And after that, how do I manage it? Type of thing. It's like your body decides to do that, and it's crazy to the extent of which our bodies then goes to protect us, I guess, in its own way, in the way it knows biologically, in the way it biologically knows from threats, instead of like our minds being like, okay, fear and control. Okay, so now I want to go to the second part. After that, over time, obviously, because we have a mind as well and we're conscious humans, you get a bit irritated. You're like, okay, it's the same cycle. Yes, I've adapted to it, but now, okay, you kind of slowly get out of that loop. Imagine it's 7-8 years and you're just like, okay, it's getting a bit irritating. And also you grow up and you change the way you see things. You see the world for yourself and you're like, okay, this is getting a bit, and slowly your mind starts to think like, am I just afraid? But like, what else is going to happen? What else is going to happen? Because they're doing the same thing. So what else? I've already adapted. I don't know. I know what's coming. It's like, what else can they do? And so you kind of become immune to the point where you're not really afraid anymore. This is what happened to me. And so, long story short, one day, randomly, obviously this was trickling in my mind for months and things. Randomly, I was so over it and so fed up. I genuinely, this is my personal experience. This is how it happened to me. I know these topics are very like sensitive, and I know everyone has their own story, but this is how it happened for me. I just stood up for myself, but I genuinely didn't feel fear. That's why it was like, I was not afraid, of getting hit. I was not afraid anymore because I was like, I'm all grown up in my head. I was like, I'm all grown up. Like what else can you do? I already know what's coming. I've adapted to this. Like my body's adapted to it. What do you want? Like genuinely, what do you want? And I was so immune to it, to the point I became so unafraid. And I was like, I screamed in this person's face before because they were about to hit me, and I was like, okay, do it then, because that's all you can do. What else can you do? And then they froze. It was a reaction I never ever anticipated, and all I could see was fear in their eyes. It's as if I've transferred it, but it was never mine to begin with. It was their projected fears, but it was one of the weirdest points in my life. My nose keeps sorry, I think I have hay fever because it's spring and my nose randomly gets runny. It's a bit gross, I'm sorry. Yeah. And also, if I'm going in and out at points, it's because this is a bit traumatic. So I think a way I cope with speaking about things like this is I'll go in and out. A lot of the things that happened, I don't remember, like my mind kind of hides. So this is going to be a bit slower and weird. But bear with me. But that was one of the weirdest moments in my life, and I remember it so clearly to this day. All I did was scream. I did not put my hand up. I did not even raise my hand. I did not touch this person, and I just said, "I'm not afraid. Do what you have to do and get it over with, because it's embarrassing at this point." And I was screaming, but that's it. And then they started backing away. Keep in mind, I'm not moving. My body was not moving. I was standing, in one point, and this person is looking at me now, like with the most fearful eyes. And then they back away. They walk backwards towards the room, walk backwards, and then they close the door. And ever since that day, never laid a hand on me. And yeah, whatever. We don't have to speak about the rest and whatever. But that was an example to give. Uh, give me a sec. I feel so all over the place. That was an example to give. Like I said, everyone has their own stories. This is why it's quite hard to speak on my story, because I know it can be very different from other people. But at the same time, I feel I want to speak about things like this sometimes. And it's just so important, because that just shows I'm talking about 8 years. Okay, it was 7.5. That's why I keep saying 7, 8, something like that, of constant abuse. And it wasn't like light, it was like, yeah, again, I don't want to go into the details, but I'm talking about that. And all it took was for me to scream in your face to tell you that I'm not afraid of you. And then your coward self, basically, and the fear showed itself on you, like, because that's all it is. It's they mask their fear through that, and through controlling you now are afraid. So that's what they need. But in the same light, that's all they have. You could say that's all they need, but that's all they have. Basically, what I'm trying to say, once that control is gone, they have nothing. And that control is fear. It's just fear. It's their fears projected onto you. It's fear. And once you realize that, you're like, wait, done. Again, different scenarios. There's different. I know it's easier said than done. And I know people are in situations where it's like, yeah, I could just say I'm not afraid, but then I have nowhere to go, or I can't get myself out of this situation. I understand. This is why I'm not trying to give an example and say you just need to stand up and scream and then it's going to be over. But I am trying to make you understand how important it is to realize the power of fear on our minds. Okay? Because if our own bodies react the way mine did, and they would rather adapt to a situation than make it known in your mind and accept the fact that you are just afraid, then it just shows the power it can have and the control it can have over you. So the reason I'm making this and the reason I'm saying this is to realize the extent of which fear can take you, and oh, give me a sec. And how important it is to even acknowledge that one first step, to acknowledge that you maybe are in fear. You're living in fear, whatever it is. Or maybe with your relationship, maybe you're in a relationship and maybe you're afraid. Whether it's financial, you're afraid because you don't have the money to provide for yourself. Whether it's emotional, whether it's physical, a mix of everything, mental, whatever it is. But acknowledge it. Acknowledge the fact that you're afraid. Make it known to yourself. You don't have to make it known to anyone else. Make it known to your mind, and make it a habit to tell your mind and remind yourself in moments like this, okay, I'm just afraid. I'm just afraid. Okay, you're afraid. And slowly and slowly, hopefully, you can get to a stage where you can unleash yourself from that control, whatever it is that's controlling you. Again, this is why it's hard to say, because everyone has such different stories, and we're so, like, our lives as humans are so complex, and I can't just sit here and tell you, just don't be afraid and that's it, sunshine and rainbows. But I'm trying to help in the ways I can and in the ways I know, and I just being honest and being authentic to what I believe in. Because I think, like I said, fear is such a big thing. Because I was speaking about it earlier in a video, on a societal level, it controls our whole society. But then you take it on a more personal level and people in your life and situations, and it's like, it's such a complex thing, and it's so wrapped around us. It's wrapped in our lives. It's wrapped around us since we're little kids. You're taught to fear these little things, and essentially what it is, it's about realizing, okay, what is controlling me through fear? There's always at least one thing in your life, a few things in your life that are controlling you through fear, and trying to, unleash yourself from that, I guess. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I think that's enough, because I just think that's really important. And I'm getting really cold now. It's cold in the room. But yes, I just hope you can realize, if you're living in fear, what it is that you are fearing, and to remember that you don't have to be afraid of anything or anyone. Again, when you say it like that, it sounds like so easy, but I know how it feels to be in a situation where, well, I am afraid of this person. Well, this person's clearly, I know. Trust me, I know. It's not that easy. But like I said, our minds are very powerful, and these little trinket thoughts. This is how I told you, like, over the years, I was getting fed up, and you get to a point, it's like these little thoughts trickling. Wait, do I actually want to be afraid of this person? You're always going to have those nudges, those things like, wait, am I actually, do I want to be controlled by them? And if you are getting those, please listen. And that's why I'm saying it's so important to just start by telling your mind, I don't want to be afraid, I'm not afraid. These little things make such a big difference to your mind. And then little by little, what you keep repeating to yourself just becomes bigger and bigger. You know how they speak about manifestations and affirming things? It's the same as affirming, You have to reprogram your mind, reprogram what you want to believe. And yeah, I hope I was understood in the right ways. Yes, I hope so. And I hope it helped someone. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye. Sending you all the love. Bye bye.